Ladies, are you the one who gets it all done? Always pushing forward? Always striving? In the constant chase for success, when was the last time you took a moment just for you? We're always on the go, rushing from one task to the next, barely pausing to catch our breath. What if we took a moment to pause? Imagine listening in, really listening, to the wind, to your heartbeat, to your soul. What if slowing down was the key, a chance to discover a deeper connection with yourself? And from that connection, expand it to those you love, to the moments that truly matter. Pause, reflect, connect. It's time to live fully from the inside out. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a Soulful Pause. I'm Josette Diaz, and I am a self-awareness coach for women in midlife. And I have a beautiful membership group called the Art of Awareness. This is for the high-achieving ladies who are ready to slow down, listen deeply, and connect within, and start revealing their revelations from the inside so that they stop responding to life and start creating it. I have a beautiful guest with me today, and I'm very excited to get started with all of you and with Dr. Heidi Ashbaugh. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Heidi. She'll be out in just a moment. And Dr. Ashbaugh is a emergency medicine physician and life coach who's transforming how working mothers approach their professional and personal lives. Based in Jacksonville, Florida, she brings a unique blend of clinical expertise and practical wisdom to her work. She works at several community emergency departments and as an adjunct faculty member teaching residents at the University of Florida, Jacksonville. She also serves as an executive chair for Women in Medicine. Dr. Ashbaugh has dedicated her career to empowering healthcare professionals and working mothers. Now, this is something really close to my heart, and I want you to hear this part the most. So, drawing from her experience as a former emergency department medical director and her own journey as a working mom, she developed the Align method, a proven 5-step framework that helps busy mothers break free from calendar chaos and create sustainable routines that actually work. Through her coaching program, Time Freedom, Heidi guides professional women from overwhelm to confidence, helping them focus on what truly matters in both their careers and family lives. Now, this is a woman that is changing the world paradigm, and that's what we're all about here. So let's bring Heidi in and have a wonderful conversation. Good morning, Heidi. How are
Good
you?
morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Ashbaugh, yep.
Okay, good. All right. I'm not very good at pronunciation sometimes, so I always ask just to be on the safe side. So I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm really excited about having the conversation around helping working moms because I think it's such a struggle. I did that with my first child, having career and home, and I was a single mom, and it was really challenging. So I relate to this so much. And so let's dive in. I'm going to start us off with just a question, just to kind of give us a jumping off point. And let's start with like balancing the roles. So you've had an incredible career in emergency medicine while raising a family. And what inspired you to develop the Align method, and how has it impacted your own journey as a working mom?
That's a great question. Maybe a loaded one, but I will try to keep it succinct. I think so. I'm going to back up a little bit before I get to the Align method, just to
Okay.
give a little background.
Yeah,
So
please.
I was an emergency medicine physician, still am. And then I started working more in administrative role, but also ER doc.
Yeah.
And And then actually, as I took my first administrative role, I was pregnant with my first, with my
Mhm.
daughter.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible opportunity. It was really a lot of fun. And there was the creativity part that I really liked. We were opening up a new
Mm.
freestanding ER.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of design and implementation, and the practical and the logical part of my brain loved it. And then I moved on to another role in one of our flagship hospitals, in the emergency department, that had been struggling for a lot of years with a lot of different pieces of the puzzle. Um, and it was definitely a different dynamic. It was within a
Mm.
larger hospital. And so it was not just the ER anymore. It
Yeah.
was one department in many.
Mhm.
And then COVID hit.
Mm.
And with COVID, so at that point I had two kids under 3. So a little one, my son was 13 months old. My daughter was, I think, just barely, almost 3 at that point. And the world just seemed to stop.
Yeah.
Personally, professionally, school shut down. Um, my admin role grew tremendously as we were trying to sort and plan
Right.
and figure things out. And we really had to pivot a lot of changes that we had coming in through the pipelines and progress
Mhm.
that we had made over the previous year or two. All of a sudden things just paused, and not in always the best of ways is the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
So but that's ultimately, looking back, it was one of the hardest times of my career, but also the thing that led to pivoting to the life coach piece of things.
Mm.
So I had worked with a coach, um, and the whole adage of when things happen to you versus for you. And at
Right.
the time, it really felt like it was happening to me,
Of course, right? That's how
and
it
not in a good
feels.
way.
Yeah.
But looking back, I can see how it happened for me. That
Mhm.
was kind of the steps I needed and the things that I needed in my life. And there was
Mhm.
some struggle in that.
Yes.
But really guided me to the next steps into making some critical pivots in my own life, and sort of stepping back and looking at my values, which really have not changed over time, but my priorities have certainly shifted.
Right.
And I think with little kids and then with COVID, it really shifted priorities. And it really highlighted the things, how they were shifting in my own life. And more, perhaps most importantly, how I needed
Mhm.
to take care of myself. And I really hadn't been doing that,
Right.
and certainly not well.
Yeah.
So I think that allowed me to dive into the coaching, get certified as
Mhm.
a life coach, and then ultimately developing a framework which I love to share with other working
Mm.
moms. And ultimately, the Align method was what came out of that for me, and sort of creating a values and priority based framework
Mm.
for moms to kind of
Mhm.
see where they are in their careers and in their lives,
Yes.
and recognize that it's seasonal. It's
Right.
where you start is not where you are in your current, and is not
Yeah.
necessarily where you'll be in the future. So I think pausing to just recognize where you are,
Mhm.
um, is just crucial in terms of then designing and creating what you actually want for the future, as opposed to just responding to what's been loaded on your plate.
Exactly. Yes, and that's so habitual for all of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when we're busy and we have, changing priorities and family
Hmm.
lives. I mean, it's a great deal. Anyone who is doing it knows, you know,
Yes. The juggle
exactly
is
what that's
real.
about. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's
Yep.
right. I
That's what
love
I
that
say.
better than
Yeah.
the struggle. Yeah.
Yep.
It's so true. So when you were going through your coaching, did you find that that was well, you said that it was the catalyst that brought you to where you are now,
Yeah.
in creating a line. So what pieces were the gems that you took from that experience, I guess is the question I'm trying to ask, that really contributed to a line?
Yeah. So I think the overwhelm that I used to experience in terms
Mhm.
of trying to fit what felt like a million puzzle pieces in to a very small, finite amount of time,
Yeah.
really had me kind of pause and step back, is the truth. It's like I just realized that all of those pieces weren't going to fit. And there was
Yeah.
just too much. And I couldn't, and I love the, the feminist movement that gave us the gift of we can do it all. But I really realized that there was a caveat that we can do it all, just not at the same time.
Right.
And so I think allowing myself that freedom of, hey, it doesn't all have to happen today. It doesn't have to happen this year. And really stepping back was really the thing that kind of drove me into some of this. And actually, it was interesting. So when I first started kind of the coaching, and one of my first steps was to sort of start taking care of myself,
Yeah.
in terms of physical, mental, emotional, all of it. But I started I realized that I had gotten out of shape, and, and that was
Yeah.
always a thing that I really valued. And as I
Right.
started I had a bad back injury and a hip, and I had a very giant 1-year-old. So I think I carried him around on my hip all the time. And I realized it. So anyway, I'd gotten out of the habit of working out.
Yeah.
So one of the things that really, when I stepped into the coaching space and allowing myself time, to start working out again and making that a part of my schedule, and really putting that into play regularly and carving that time out for myself. And it was
Yeah.
actually out on a run, when I was listening to this book, Happier Hour. I'm blanking on the name of the author, but I'll think of it in 1 second, I'm sure. But
Okay.
I was listening to a part, and I remember the very turn that I was listening to it, and she was talking about discretionary time and free time, as I feel like how most of us would label it.
Yeah. Right.
But the importance of discretionary time in relationship to happiness is what she was talking about. And the author is Cassie Holmes. She's a PhD out in LA. But so anyway, she was talking about the relationship between discretionary time and happiness. And she kind of talked about this sweet spot of between 2 and 4 hours a day. And I literally stopped running, and I was like, who has 2 to 4 hours of free time a day? I mean, this would be, what incredible magic is this? And it was one of those moments of, I realized that that was a big part of my overwhelm, of that
Yeah.
there was zero discretionary time.
Right.
And then I kept running, and while I was over the bridge that was around the corner from this spot that I all of a sudden had this realization of, what if I could carve that out? Like, what if I could create that for myself? And what would that look like? And that ultimately became kind of the foundation for the rest of it. So it really kind of set myself up of, okay, looking at a calendar and really doing an audit of, what am I spending my time on? And is that what I want to spend my time on?
Yes. Right. Getting more discerning.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, that awareness piece, also then started, like, so little by little, I could chip away on what I was spending my time on. Did I want to? And was I getting out of it what I wanted? And I joked with one of my coaching clients, because we shared this of, we used to watch shows at night, kind of late at night. And I remember, I'm not a late night person by nature by any means.
Yeah.
But it was sometimes, especially when our kids were little, it was like the only time that my husband and I had together.
Right.
And so it sort of felt like this connection time. But then I found myself, half dozing off or scrolling on social media while I was trying to connect, watch TV with my husband. And I just realized at the end, I was like, there was no connection that happened here.
Yeah. You just had the scheduled time, right?
Right. So, and I was like, I think I would connect better if I was just sleeping for those 2 hours and it was present for the rest of the day with him. So, it was just little things like that, by kind of the audit is what I call it, but looking at the time that I'm spending, or that we all are spending, and is it fulfilling what you think it is? Is it actually accomplishing what you hope to accomplish in that time? So that was kind of the frame that started it all.
I mean, that's brilliant. I love the story. And I think that a couple of things that have stood out to me in listening to your story is you got curious. Like you dove into something you valued, which I'm a big believer in, the values driving your life. And then you got curious. And that curiosity led to this, opportunity to discern what was adding value to your life. The things that you were doing, were they giving you value? And I just think that's such a beautiful way to look at, the structure of how you're taking care of yourself. I mean, the value that you're giving your clients in this program sounds tremendous.
I love it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really beautiful. So tell me more.
Yeah. So a line, I will be honest, I stole this from uh, AI in terms of trying to find a name that worked for me
Yeah.
in this framework. And I kind of put it in. I was like, please give me 10 names that I could use for
Yeah,
this. And
something
anyway,
to choose from, yes.
that's where I ended up getting the align. But it was so beautiful because when it popped up, so the logo for my business actually is basically a spine
Mhm.
with flowers blooming from it, and
Mm.
I love it in
Mm.
terms of there's the when things align, all of a sudden things can blossom,
Right,
and things
yeah,
can bloom, and when things are
yeah,
aligned, and so for me it was kind of the serendipitous moment of, oh, of course that's the name, like that's
right?
perfect. But basically it stands for, there's 5 steps of A
Okay.
is audit your time, L
Mhm.
is learn your energy code, and
Yeah.
for me that's a little bit of like what's draining energy versus what's giving you energy.
Yes.
um, and then I is integrate what you want in your life, and so
Mhm.
that's where a little bit of the picking and choosing of, this is the season I'm in, this is how I have to integrate, of like what can I fill and what time do I have. And
Mhm.
then G is kind of guide your ideal week design or ideal life. And I think
Yeah.
when you start as a guide and then you can plug in the pieces and really plot out kind of what's next and what's coming, I think that there's a control piece of, hey, I can't control everything, but there are
Right.
certain things that I can. And if I'm intentional about that, I can plug it in and kind of map things out. And then
Mhm.
the N stands for navigate sustainable success. So, looking at how can I sustain this over time? We can all, I feel like med school and residency probably taught me of probably a lot of us who have gone through it, I can do this for 6 weeks or I can do this for 3 months. And you put your head down and really plow forward. But
Right.
but you couldn't do that for much longer than that.
Yeah.
But so for me, this is about how do we implement something that can be sustained over time. And it's
Mhm.
not about putting your head down or plowing through.
Yes.
It's really about like giving yourself the grace and space to really see what you want and how to navigate that, knowing that life's going to throw you some curveballs.
Right, right, but if you take it in more bite-sized pieces,
Yeah,
it becomes a little bit more, in your mind, you can attain that, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I love
absolutely.
that. That's really great. What are some of the, do moms struggle with that the most? The piece of, like, even if you chunk it down, is that something that they struggle with getting in the routine of, I guess, might be the word to use?
Yeah, I think that when you zoom out and you start to see the time and spaces that you can start to plug in different ways than how you're using your time now, I think sometimes there's these like aha light bulb moments for a lot of
Mhm,
clients and a lot of people,
mhm.
that then those things are easy. I think navigating around, certain relationships or boundaries or other things that have been just so habitual,
Yeah.
and how to navigate that. But I think
Mhm.
when people come approach it from a place of love and
Mhm.
alignment for them and what work, I think that some of those changes are actually a lot easier to make than people think they would be.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. So, um, my next question, though, is it's kinda leading me to think about in the area that of work that you're in healthcare, especially emergency room,
Mhm.
that's a much more fast-paced, super intense environment. Um, what would you advise for other women that are facing those types of challenges and pressures to, how they can stick with, um, managing that career and also managing home, and how do you not let those lines blur when you're, you know, really trying to accomplish the different priorities in your career life and in your home life? I think that is such a challenging thing, and you even touched on your spouse, like, and keeping all of that together and rolling and moving. What do you do with your clientele to help them through those things?
It's a great question. The old adage of you can't pour from an empty cup, I
Yeah.
think is where I kind of start. And that's where I think filling your own cup is, it's as cliche as it sounds sometimes. I think this is what's really helpful to think about. And I think women, especially the clients that I work with, but on the whole, I feel like women and moms tend to be relatively selfless. And whether that's the message we've received or there's an innate something about motherhood that brings that out in us,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
this selflessness really can be beautiful, but also can be detrimental. And so I think even in your work, the pause
Mhm. Yeah.
between stimulus and response is crucial. I think pausing to realize when you've gone off target or you've really
Mhm.
overstepped boundaries or someone's overstepping your boundaries, and being
Right.
able to pause in that,
Yeah.
really say, is this what I want? Um,
Mhm.
or is this what my family needs? Is this where I want to dedicate my time or energy? And know that that can change and evolve over time.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I think, it also depends on what stage your children are in, right?
Mhm.
Because as you mentioned, carrying the one-year-old on your hip all the time, I mean, it's a
Yeah,
lot, and
yeah,
I think when your kids are really little before school age, it's even more challenging to manage that kind of a balance, if balance is even the right word. I like
right.
to
I
use
know.
harmony, right? Because harmony
Yeah,
is more fluid, and it seems like that's how life is, it's more fluid,
yeah.
and so I think that, what would you say is one of the big, common breakthroughs that your clients receive when going through, your program?
The term mom guilt, I feel like, is something
Mhm.
that um, taking some of this from, I'm going to pause here because I'm going to take a little tangent here. So I love Brene Brown,
Yes.
and her work around guilt and shame, I really
Mhm.
have found helpful in terms of she defines guilt as like I did something bad
Yeah.
versus shame as I am bad.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that the term mom guilt often gets thrown around, and I really think it's more mom shame. Um,
Mm.
in terms of
Mm.
moms tend to feel like I'm a bad mom if I do
Right.
XYZ. Um, and I think that it's really just it's sad and it's harmful.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many expectations that are thrown and belief systems and all of that are thrown on moms to make impossible decisions sometimes.
Yes.
Um, and it's that mom shame that I think a lot of my clients actually can let go of.
Mhm.
That after realizing, no, I'm not a bad mom for wanting a career and wanting to thrive in other
Right.
parts of my life. I'm not a
Yeah.
bad mom for taking care of myself and
Mhm.
treating myself like a human being just like everyone else is. That my priorities matter too. Like I'm
Yeah.
so I think letting go of that can be huge for a lot of people.
Right.
It's just the 50-pound backpack that all of a sudden, if you can drop that, things get a lot easier.
It's so true, and I think that what you're doing is so valuable because you mentioned earlier about the concept that, through the feminine movement, we were given all these freedoms. I heard
Hmm.
someone say, in a documentary, and I apologize for not knowing who it was, I just remember the statement, that they said that through the feminine movement, the focus was getting a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a seat at the table, yet we didn't really consider the rest of it and what that meant for us
Hmm.
as women and mothers and wives, etcetera, and doing all the things. So there's like that commercial back in the '70s of I can bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan. Some
Right.
people know this if you're old enough. And, um, and I think that that concept that we all grew up in was, is still detrimental to a mindset that we think of, like you were saying, that moms, you know, think of it as shame rather than, guilt, more or less, right?
Well, and sometimes it's not even, I don't even think that the guilt of like, I didn't do anything bad.
Right,
I just
right.
think it's a mindset of I am bad. And I don't
Yeah.
think either one really apply. It's,
Yes,
and
yes.
but it's internalized so much as that. And
Mhm.
shame can be such a powerful, in a negative context, of course,
Right.
driver for so many people. And actually, even Brene Brown talks about how guilt can actually be helpful. If you did something bad, that can be a helpful shape. That's an emotion that can be really helpful to shape further decisions. But
Right.
shame is never helpful.
Yeah, I
You
think
know?
guilt can be and this is my take on it, is guilt is um, an energy of perpetual, like keeping you standing still. And
Mm,
so if you use guilt like Brene Brown suggests in this way, is that it sounds to me like a pause. It's a moment to pause and assess,
mm,
rather than we've used it as a tool to turn in on ourselves rather than
mhm.
using it for what it may be actually intended for, which is to actually take a look at
Yeah,
where we are and what are these decisions that we want to make.
right. Yeah.
And when we feel guilty, we just keep doing it over and over because we don't know what else to do.
Well, I think that's often what happens when people don't take the pause,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
reevaluate,
Yeah,
and just the pause and looking at, okay, what am I actually feeling guilty about, or where did I go? Because we all make mistakes, and I think
right.
that's been one of the beautiful things about having kids for me is
Mm,
recognizing, we're all human, we're all fallible, we all make
yeah,
mistakes, and repair is possible,
yeah,
if you own up to it and you try
right.
better and you work harder. And sometimes there's a lot we need to learn. And
Yeah,
sometimes, the way we used to do it isn't the way that we want to do it anymore.
mm,
But
yeah, it's true.
there was a book, and there was a kid's book basically about like goblins, gremlins, or something underneath the bed. And part of the book, it was like, even mommy makes mistakes.
Mm,
And I remember reading that to my kids when they were little, and that became kind of a theme. I was like, even mom makes mistakes. And so when they would do something, or made a giant mess, and like, it was like, we're all make mistakes, even mommy makes mistakes.
yeah,
And I think there's a beautiful thing about just knowing that we're all going to make mistakes, and we're
right.
all, as long as we're trying the best we can, that's all we can ever ask of ourselves. And even that is a hard thing to attain 100% of the time.
That's true. I think that's such a valuable lesson to teach your kids because giving them the opportunity to know that others make mistakes and that it's okay
Yeah,
is really going to help build their own character in tenacity
yeah.
and in not being so hard on themselves. I mean, that's such a valuable lesson to give to your kids. I love
And I
that.
think just knowing that we're all lovable, and
Mhm.
valuable and worthy
Yeah.
of, no matter the mistake.
Well, what I'd like to just ask you this one question, then I'm going to ask you some other, coachy questions.
Sure.
Um, what message would you like to give the moms out there that are, working on having a career and having a family life and a marriage at the same time?
I think the first, a big one is, it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to do it all by yourself. Um, I've been really fortunate. My mother-in-law has helped us with childcare stuff since our kids were, well, we had two sort of nanny babysitters when my daughter was really young. And my husband's also an ER doc, so our schedules were all over the place, and there was
Yeah.
always a mix and mash. And then his mom started helping us, and whoa, did life get simpler,
Wow.
And so I
That's
think
huge.
asking for help was never a strong suit of mine, is the truth.
Mhm.
I was always I will do it myself. And I'm sure my mom can
Right.
attest to that, since I was probably 2 years old and I could tell her I'll do it by myself. But I think that lesson, and knowing that you can depend on people, and knowing
Mhm.
that there are reliable people in your life that love you, that want to help, that
Yeah.
want to, I think building that community. And I know not everybody has family nearby, and especially as families have moved all over the country and all,
Right.
but I'm incredibly fortunate that she's close by. Uh, but I think, building that community and asking for help and knowing who you can depend on is really crucial.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree with you, and I totally resonate with that, not asking for help. I think so many women do.
Yeah.
They will resonate with that. That's such a big deal. Well, so okay, so here's the coachy questions.
Okay.
You tell us where people can find you,
Yeah.
and
Uh,
if you have anything special too.
okay. Sure. So you can find me. So I have a website. It's called Empowered Coaching HA, so my initials, but
Mhm.
empoweredcoachingha.com. I'm on LinkedIn with my name, Heidi Ashbaugh. I'm on Instagram and Facebook with Empowered Coaching HA. I do have a freebie. You can join my mailing list for free. I've got a little PDF that walks people through the power of no, which I think is actually
Mm.
really helpful for a lot of moms and working moms, and was something I struggled with. So it kind of walks people through a little bit of that. It's 50 Shades of No is what the cover is. I had fun designing this one with like a high heel, but part of it's reclaiming your time with no. And for me, that came out of um, a little bit of a story about my 2-year-old, the giant one. He as he got bigger, the truth is, so he used to sit on my lap basically
Oh.
every meal. That was just like, he's a snuggle buggle and a giant love bug, but also a personality. And one time, one day I was just like sitting and eating and trying to dodge around his giant head. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I could just say no. And all of a sudden it was just like this, like, again, like a light bulb moment of like, I've been dodging around this kid's head for almost 2 years. Like, no, no, but I think learning to embrace that, and
Mhm.
again, not having the mom guilt or shame for, like, what does that mean, and the fallout from that.
Yes, yes,
There
right.
may be a few tantrums in terms of the fallout, but ultimately establishing some of those boundaries. And so I think the power of no can be really helpful, because that can then, to the flip side of that, it leaves you open and available to the yeses, like the true yes and the
Mm.
authentic yeses.
Mhm.
And so I think that can apply at work, that can apply at home. But there's a freebie on my website.
Yeah.
So if you want to join, please do. And I try to send out a weekly email as well, with just kind of different coaching tips and stories and shares. So
So good.
that's where you can find me.
Great. And I'm going to have all of those links in the notes once this gets posted. And
Perfect.
so everyone can find you. And I'm so, so happy that you came and shared your expertise with everyone today. I think that you are so needed in this world for the moms out there.
Well, thank
And
you so much for having me. I really
oh,
appreciate your
yeah,
time, and yeah,
yes,
it's been
it was
fun.
a lovely conversation. Thank you so much, Heidi, for being here. I really
Thank
feel
you.
honored. All right. Thank you, everyone. And, again, if you are interested in diving deeper into revealing your inside revelations, then come join me in the Art of Awareness. There is a art circle today. So if you want to try that on, you can go to guidancetowellness.com and just hop on into the courses and memberships, and you'll find the Art of Awareness there, and you can come and join us. So thank you again, Heidi, for being with us.